Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and this is the spoiler book tag. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, Tag Tuesday, time for another tag. This week it is the spoiler book tag, and this was created by Scott over at Gunpowder Fiction Plot. I think quite a long time ago, 3 years ago I think, but it has been recently revived by Jess at Jess Book Girl TV, and I was tagged by Pat over at Book Chat with Pat. So thank you very much for that tag, Pat. And I will link to all three channels in the description as always. So let's dive straight into the prompts then and talk spoilers. So prompt number one, what do you consider a spoiler? Any information that reveals a kind of a major plot twist, anything that's meant to be a surprise, really, or the end of a book generally, even if it's not a mystery or a twisty turny one. Things that would potentially impact on a reader's enjoyment of finding out something for themselves is what I'd consider a spoiler. Okay, prompt number two then is, does the genre you're reading impact what you consider to be a spoiler? No, not really. A spoiler is a spoiler. Some spoilers are worse than others. As I say, if it's meant to be a kind of a real twist in the story that is meant to be a shock moment, a surprise, then that's worse than just kind of having a general idea of how the story goes. If that's spoiled. So spoilers in classics I'm less bothered about because they're classics and they've been out there for a long time and people discuss them all the time. I think newer books are worse as well, as I say, like horror, mystery, thrillers, anything like that. I don't want any kind of plot twists spoilt. Prompt number three, all the best bits are in the trailer. Sometimes a synopsis can be too detailed. Do you research books prior to reading them, or do you prefer to know nothing about the book? I don't research books in depth for sure. I'll make sure that it's something that I think I'm going to want to read, but then I can usually tell that from the back cover. If it's something that I think is a mystery, thriller, horror type thing, then I'll try and steer clear of spoilers. I will, however, sometimes research potential triggers. So I will research things like if there's a dog in the story, I will spoil myself in some respects by checking that the dog doesn't die. I'm a regular visitor to doesthedogdie.com. So things like that. I will check to see if there are any sort of warnings about animal cruelty or any particular things that might bother me particularly. So homophobia, transphobia won't necessarily stop me from reading the book, but it will just mean that I go in, kind of with my eyes open and I don't get a nasty shock with something that I'm not in the right frame of mind to read at that time. So I do research in that respect, but I don't really want to know a huge amount about where the plot goes. I just want a basic premise. Okay, prompt number four is, sometimes the introduction or translator's notes can spoil the ending, especially for classics. Has this ever happened to you? Yes. Not in classics though. Modern classics maybe, but no, more in contemporary books. The introduction, never a translator's notes, I've never found that. But introductions I no longer read before I read the actual book. I read them after because I've been spoiled on a couple of occasions and it really annoyed me. Plus I think introductions just don't always make as much sense, and I don't get as much out of them reading them before something that I don't know, a text that I don't know. Sometimes they can refer to elements about the book that actually make more sense once you've read it. I will read introductions before reading the main book if it's something that I've read before though. So the introduction in this new edition of Carrie by Margaret Atwood. I read that before I read Carrie because I know the story already. But yeah, I'm very wary of introductions. Prompt number 5 then is name a time someone spoiled a novel for you. It's not happened that much actually. I think I can remember one occasion when I was a youngster, probably when I was at school, like maybe sixth form, something like that. I think it was a Stephen King book, and I'd kind of said to a friend like, "Oh, this is what I'm reading," and they're like, "Oh, that's great! I love that book and stuff." They got really excited about it, and I'd then kind of gone, "Oh, have you got to the bit where?" And it was kind of a major plot twist, and I was like, "No." And it took them a minute to actually click that they'd just spoilt it, and they were really like apologetic about spoiling. It was a totally unintentional spoiler. They just got really over excited about the fact that I was reading something that they loved. But it didn't like ruin it or anything. But yeah, that's the only time I can think of like somebody spoiling a novel for me, other than somebody who's written an introduction to one. Okay, prompt number 6 is have you ever spoiled a novel for somebody else? Not that I'm aware of. No, I am quite careful generally with not inadvertently spoiling um, a novel or a film or a TV show or anything like that. I do try and you know restrain myself from talking too much about a plot of something in case I was to spoil something for someone. I have been accused of not saying enough about a book before. I recommended The Outsider to my sister, and didn't mention a couple of things in that, which I got a text message going, "Oh my God, how did you not tell me that this was coming?" Because it was something that scared the hell out of her. And I probably should have known, and I probably should have warned her. But I didn't want to say too much about the book. But yeah, so I have done the opposite and not said enough. But no, I don't think I've ever spoiled anything for anyone. When it comes to TV and film, I've been accused of spoiling things for my wife. On a rewatch, like we'll be rewatching a series that we love that we've watched together before, and like I'll see what episode's coming up next, and I've said like, "Oh great, the next episode's where such and such happens." She's like, "What?" I'm like, "We've watched it before." And she's like, "Yeah, but I totally forgotten and you've spoilt it now." And it's like, that's not a spoiler. If you've seen it before and you just happen to have forgotten, that's not a spoiler. But yeah, no, I don't think I've spoiled things for people generally. Okay, prompt number 7 then is if spoilers ruin novels, are there any authors or genres you can't reread? No. When you get onto a reread, you're not in spoiler territory. And it's like it's knowledge then. It's knowledge you've got from the experience the first time around. So just because you know what's going to happen in a plot twist or what have you doesn't mean that it's not enjoyable on the second read or the third read or whatever. And I think it's a different experience because it's what's coming, and so you start to see lots of little things, maybe hints that have been dropped, foreshadowing and stuff that you didn't see before. You see how things connect up differently. So I actually quite enjoy reading something where it has been full of twists and turns that I've not necessarily seen come in, because then I can go back and see where actually maybe I should have seen them come in. So yeah, no, I don't think spoilers, certainly not in this context. I can certainly reread stuff, that's not a problem. Prompt number 8. When reviewing books, are you spoiler free? Does this limit your ability to discuss? I do try to keep spoiler free when I do reviews. I do always give a spoiler warning, even though I don't do major spoilers. There are some things that for some, I think it's very subjective. For some folks, any details about the plot whatsoever are spoilers for them. And so I always give that warning that if you want to go in totally blind to something, don't watch my review until you've read the book, because I'm going to talk about certain things. But I always restrict what I talk about in terms of plot events and things like that to the first part of the book, things that can be found in blurbs, synopsis, kind of official synopses online, things like that. I do try to keep it away from any major spoilers, plot twists, ending, all that kind of stuff. Does it limit my ability to discuss stuff? Yeah, I do feel it does actually. I've felt it more, I think more and more as I've kind of got into talking about books on BookTube. I think it depends on the book, but like there are certain books where I do really want to talk about the plot twists. I want to talk spoilers because part of my enjoyment of reading the book and part of my appreciation for the writing, things like that, um, can only really be discussed when I talk about those actual moments, those like pivotal moments. And because I don't want to spoil things, I obviously can't talk about those. Sometimes it's very difficult to talk about a book without spoiling it, and so I have to kind of pull back and not really discuss elements that I'd actually really like to go into. I am considering doing some spoiler reviews and clearly marking them as spoiler reviews, just because some stuff I really want to talk about those, and if you've read it, then you can have a proper, really, have a really good discussion about those elements. So yeah, I do think it does limit my ability sometimes, but there's always a way around that. If I want to talk spoilers, I will talk spoilers. I'll just make it really clear if I post a video that's got spoilers in it, so nobody gets spoiled. Okay, and prompt number 9 is to tag some folks. I will drop some names in the description, and if your name is down there, then consider yourself tagged. But likewise, if you've not been tagged and you fancy a crack at this one, then do jump on board. But that will do from me today then, folks. Thank you very much for watching. As always, do drop your thoughts in the comments below. I will be back on Friday with my thoughts on A Canticle for Leibowitz, one of my science fiction reads from January. So I do hope you'll join me for that then. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.